Guys, today is a sad fucking day, man. I'm gonna go ahead and have to sell my McLaren. It was a brutal time, meaning that most of you know I do these case studies for exotic car hacks where I teach you guys how to buy, trade, and sell exotic cars so you can drive them for free or ultimately break away with a profit. And unfortunately, this has been my greatest loss. The McLaren brand has let me down despite being one of the best sports cars I've ever owned. In short, the review for this car, if you watch my other thoughts about the car itself, I'll just leave it this way. It's as incredible as a car as a 911 Turbo S, except much more incredible in the sense that it's interesting. It's a fresh perspective on something very precise, something very excellent, and something that keeps rewarding you the more you drive it. Now, the one downfall is that obviously the McLaren marquee does not have the reliability that Porsche has. And while this car has been somewhat reliable for the 6 months it's been with me, it also has not been as reliable as a 911 Turbo S would have been, having had, you know, multiple maintenance issues and being needy. So it is a needy version of the 911 Turbo S, but with a much more incredibly better put design and concept. And what I like to do, which is actually funny, I'd like to compare the idea that if we think of the 911 Turbo S as the perfect wifey, then I like to consider this car the perfect wifey with a hint of porn star to her. Like, it has the appeal, it's exciting, it's fresh, it makes you want to go back, but it also delivers every time with the driving experience. So it's an incredible car. It really was. Truly enjoyed it. Some of the key things that I enjoyed the most, I think you wouldn't really understand how much until you actually own one and have owned other cars that didn't do this. But the paddles, the fact that you can shift up and down from the same side, truly amazing. The carbon bucket racing seats in this P1 track pack model, amazing seats, like very supportive. Your back doesn't hurt after 2 hours of driving, yet very beautiful and very well presented in terms of height. Even though I'm not that tall, I can still see very clearly and it doesn't look uncomfortable or drive uncomfortably. The active management system, everything, just incredible. I do recommend that if you do buy one and you're sitting on Pirelli tires, you immediately switch to the Michelins. It will make the world of a difference and you will enjoy the car so much more. Between the grip and the exact presence of how incredible the car is on the road from a takeoff standpoint, it just makes a lot more sense. So I highly recommend it. And finally, let's talk a little bit about numbers. You know, I ended up walking out of the dealership at $198 on this car. This was a almost $265,000 MSRP, which was one of the highest MSRPs true McLaren on a 570S. This included MSO paint, it included all carbon features, and all upgraded everything. The only thing it didn't have was a Carbon Pack 2 feature inside the car, which meant these speakers here throughout are not carbon fiber. Otherwise, everything else is carbon, and truly an incredible car all around. So really an incredible experience, an incredible car. But again, with a high MSRP like that, I was forced to buy the car a little bit more than my comfort zone. My comfort zone was about 190, 195. I spent about 198 on the car, knowing that I was getting a orange car, which I thought the color was striking for this car, and I thought it was going to be worth it in a resale. Unfortunately, in order to be able to move on to another case study, and because I have an NSX waiting and an LFA that needs a little bit of love right now, but I have these cars and I'm not going to have the garage space to sustain it, this car has to go. And so where does it have to go? Well, it needs to get sold, and it did get sold, and unfortunately it got sold quick, and it got sold to a guy for $8,000 less than I paid. Now, you would say it's not that bad. $8,000 over 6 months is a little bit over $1,000 to drive the latest and newest McLaren, which sounds pretty exciting. Unfortunately though, during my time of ownership, it got a little bit different now. What ended up happening is right away, one of the things I miscalculated was the fact that nobody can do oil changes on McLarens and actually reset the lights. So you are forced to use the dealership if you don't want to void your warranty. At an annual service rate of $2,000 to $2,800, depending on what you need, that's roughly about another $300 a month roughly, just on the idea if you break down the $3,000 into 12 months. So again, you're talking about, once again, another $3,000, up to a $3,000 oil change. Mine cost $2,500, my first one. And then two, I ended up not being able to put up with the squeaky brakes. I really hated it. So, because it was squeaking and because it had some track time, I ended up putting some new pads on it. And again, nobody makes these aftermarket pads but McLaren. And the pads alone, another $2,000 with a discount. So again, here's yet $4,500 gone, and followed through again by what I said earlier with the tires, and there's another $1,200. So again, now I'm faced with about $6,000 in preventive maintenance, in addition to the loss on the car itself. Truly brutal. Now, in addition to that, there's even a bigger loss. You see, in Florida, we have what we call tax credit laws, and I teach you how to use leverage tax credits so you don't have to pay taxes on your exotics past your first one. I do that at Exotic Car Hacks. So many of you who live in California and other states and who suffer with high expensive taxes and are afraid to register their car in Montana, I completely understand, and trust me, I would not have done that myself. I did not do that myself, and so in many cases, I do pay sales tax, but there are loopholes to paying less sales tax and paying them correctly so that you don't have to keep repaying them. In this particular case, though, what ended up happening is I did lose a little bit, and what I lost is a portion of my taxes. So the next car that's going to get registered after this is an NSX, which is where the tax credit will go. The NSX will not be as expensive as this car, so I will lose an additional $3,000 of the tax on this car just because the NSX is a cheaper car. Now, that said, if we add up all of these costs, my cost of driving this car for 6 months has been a little bit over $20,000. Now, $20,000 is brutal, people. It is brutal for many reasons. It is brutal because it's too much. My Huracan, which was depreciating twice as fast, ended up losing me only $600 a month. And that means my cost of ownership on a Huracan was $600 a month. If you've been following my webinar, you know exactly how we pulled that off. If not, make sure you sign up at the link below and get the webinar info, so at least you know how to. A Huracan cost me $600 a month. But this particular car right here is going to end up costing me $4,500 a month in ownership costs, which is tremendously bad. It's bad for many reasons. One, for the first time, I wanted this car, so I went away from my own model, and I went with my gut in terms of enjoying a car, not so much waiting for it to depreciate. Should I have bought the 570S now and could have bought one for like $170, I would have done a few things differently. A, I would not have bought a fully spec car like this. B, I would have bought a car much cheaper in the 175K range. I would have done so because I would have been able to exit that car at least at a break-even stage, despite some of the maintenance I may have faced. So, that said, is the McLaren 570S still an incredible car? Abso-fucking-lutely, one of the best fucking cars I've ever owned when it comes to sports cars. Very agile, and until you drive it, you really won't know what I'm talking about. I have a lot of friends that I've put onto this car in terms of like being the hottest sports car out there. And again, I'm not talking about there's better cars. I'm sure there's more expensive cars. We are comparing apples to apples, and I'm telling you that under 300 grand, I have yet to experience a car that can do what this car can do, both in speed, in fun factor, in design, and everything that comes with it. And finally, you know, was the McLaren experience worth $4,500 a month? Fuck no. Unfortunately, I would not have done this again knowing what I know today, and I would not have wasted as much time on this particular model as early as I did. I would have waited a little bit, and I would have waited till some of these cars start coming down a little bit more. So I hope you've enjoyed this final review of the McLaren 570S after 6 months of ownership, and now understand if it is or isn't for you from a cost standpoint. Just remember that McLaren still has not released a tool as of now to have other people be able to work on resetting the lights and functioning here in the car outside of the repairs. Like, so in other words, people can do work on these cars, but if you're under warranty, McLaren takes very seriously and may void your warranty as a result of someone else doing an oil change, regardless of what parts they use. And no one at this time other than McLaren can reset service lights because they have not yet released the tool to third-party shops to be able to buy and obviously sell those tools to other mechanics and so on and so forth. So the Leonardo systems that were operating on the Huracans, the Ferraris and everything do not operate on the 570S yet. The brake pads are not interchangeable, and so for now we're gonna have to mark the McLaren 570S as no-go into our case studies for exoticcarhacks.com. But we are definitely going to mark it as one of the greatest sports cars under 300 grand that ever lived, in both design, functionality, beauty, and performance in every way possible. So an incredible experience, a poor one for your wallet. And finally, I will leave you with this. If you want to learn how to drive and enjoy some of today's best exotic cars out there at no cost, then go ahead and join me at exoticcarhacks.com. Go ahead and follow my webinar. You'll learn a lot about the market. You'll learn a lot about what I do to be able to get in and out of these exotics at no cost. I still have a couple of new exotics coming out, so look for my awesome upcoming reviews of some new sports cars coming into my garage. And otherwise, I wish you guys a good day, and on to my little shenanigans one last time. Peace.